All right. So, um, welcome everybody to Resume Writing Basics workshop, brought to you by We Are Pistachio. And we have a very qualified uh, expert on this topic, Yolanda, who is here with us today. She's a career coach and founder of CareerSensei Consulting. And I'm going to introduce her in just a bit, but I want to talk a little bit about who we are. We are Pistachio. If you want to move on to the next slide, Yolanda. So we are actually,
Hold on, it is not advancing for whatever reason. There we
okay,
go.
no worries. So we are really a community built by relocating spouses for each other. So we relocated for, if you're a relocating spouse, you relocated for your spouse's job across a geography, a city, or even a country. And I'm a relocating spouse myself. And we want to create a world where we are free from those labels like trailing and accompanying. And instead, we want to focus on empowering relocating spouses to navigate the adventure that relocation is. And we provide avenues to connect, learn, and grow. Like this webinar is an avenue to connect, learn, and grow. And our promise is that uh, no relocating spouse ever feels alone, because in this relocation journey, you do tend to feel alone at certain moments. A lot of times people ask us about the name and why we are called We Are Pistachio. So that's why we included this next slide. If you want to move to the next one. Um, so when we looked at pistachio, people sometimes might think we are a nutty company or we are nuts, but really if you look at pistachio, it's the shell is part open. That's about possibilities. It's known as a happy nut in China. Pistachios are enjoyed all over the world, just like relocating spouses. They are tough. The shell is tough, just like relocating spouses are really tough to move, across the world or across locations. And we also like the last one because it's a little nutty, because I always like to say, who moves to a new place, leaving behind their friends and job, just for the heck of it. So that's why we like these five, and that's why we're called We Are Pistachio. And it, the thing about our community is we are founded by relocating spouses. So everything from the website to everything has been designed by relocating spouses. So I want to introduce myself and Dipali, who's the co-founder. So if you want to move to the next slide, Yolanda. Um, so I am a relocating spouse myself, and I uh, started with this idea because every time I moved, I struggled to find a sense of community. I struggled to start a network each time. And I decided finally, when I moved to Seattle, that if it is to be, it is up to me. And luckily, I had many women who came on this journey with me and said, "Hey, yes, we'll help you, and we want to be part of this community." So that's me. And then I have Dipali. Dipali, if you want to say a quick hi, she's a co-founder, and she's also a serial entrepreneur and a relocating spouse.
Hey, hi everybody. Just a chance meeting with Aditi through a networking event is how and when she spoke to me about this idea, and I have also, as always, been passionate because I've gone through the same struggle and journey. So when she put this whole thing together, I was completely taken up by it, and I decided to give it my all. We know these struggles. We know the areas where the relocating spouses need support, and that's what we are trying to do through VR Pistachio. One thing I want to reiterate that we are for relocating spouses by relocating spouses. We are learning as well as we go along. And since it's a community built by us for us, we are all actually in a way founders or co-owners of this company. And we would love to hear from you how to make this a success so that we can reach out and help more and more relocating spouses.
Thank you, Dipali. And without further ado, I want to introduce Yolanda to you. Yolanda and I worked it seems like a different life or ages ago, but we worked for a company which specializes in in helping relocating spouses. So when it comes to relocating spouses, Yolanda has a lot of experience to understand what are the challenges that we go through. And she's a career coach. She's a founder of CareerSensei Consulting. She's an award-winning author. And she's got this passion for helping people succeed. And when I asked her, would you just come and talk to our community? She just offered her expertise and time for free. That shows how passionate she is to really help others. She's got 20 years of recruiting experience, so she knows recruiting like no one else. So without further ado, thank you so much, Yolanda, for being here today. We are so honored and can't wait to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm honored that you thought of me to ask me to do this. I've been excited about this for days. So I'm really excited to talk to you and hear your comments and hopefully shine a spotlight on some things and give you some aha moments to help you along with your job search with regards to your resume. So without further ado, just the things that we're going to touch base on today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the top 5 things that employers look for in a resume. And when speaking about that, I'm also going to talk a little bit about things that you should focus on in your resume if you're thinking about making a career transition, whether it's a complete 360 or you're just, moving industries, whatever the case may be. Talk to you a little bit about some things you should focus on in your resume to emphasize that and to help you get some attention there. And then talk a little bit about some resume formatting best practices, some things to do. I get questions about that all the time, whether it should be 1 page, is it okay for it to be more than 1 page, what kind of fonts you should use, are there any templates out there? So I'll address a few of those things. And then we'll give some plenty of time at the end for some Q&A. So and I know they're going to be monitoring some questions in the chat, so feel free to interject if there's some questions as I'm going through. We can be pretty free-flowing and address those as we're speaking. But to kind of get started, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the top 5 resume components. As Aditi mentioned, I've been recruiting for 20 plus years, and I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes along with resumes. You name it, I have seen it. And I have found over the years, and I've also been writing resumes a really long time. That started for me as a side hustle in college. I started, by writing resumes for friends for their internships, which then parlayed into, helping their parents write resumes. And then it just kind of launched into a side business that never went away. So I've seen a lot in terms of resumes. And I have found over the years that people make one of 3 mistakes when they're writing their resumes. They either copy and paste a job description, or they use a bunch of buzzwords, or they give a laundry list of every daily duty they've done since like their 3rd grade spelling bee. And none of those things seem to bode well for them. And, there's a few reasons for that. First and foremost, anyone can kind of copy and paste a job description into their resume or use buzzwords, but it doesn't mean that they're qualified to do the job. So what I really try to do and emphasize with clients when I'm working with them is to focus on 2 key main things when writing your resume. You want to focus on your accomplishments, what you've done in your job and in each of your roles that kind of moved the needle, that made the job better than when you started it. Because those are the types of questions that they're going to ask you when they're speaking with you, whether it's in interviews or screening processes or what have you. They want to know that you know the job and what you've done, like I said, to make those jobs better than when you started in them. And then secondly, the personality piece of it. Jobs don't just hire you based on your skill sets. They also want to make sure that you're going to be a good cultural fit for whatever team or organization you're going to be working for. So I feel as if you can give them a taste of that up front and give them a little information on that, it makes for much better hiring decisions, and it makes for much better conversations as you're going through your job search process. My philosophy is that the resume should give just enough information to pique the reader's interest and leave just enough information out for them to want to continue the conversation. So if you can make your resume walk that fine line, then you're in a really good space and you're going to be giving them the kind of detail that they want. And you won't have to worry about whether you're giving them too much detail or not enough. It's going to walk that fine line that, again, you're not giving them everything that you've done, every laundry list of details that you've done. You're giving them enough information, like I said, to pique their interest and want to continue the conversation with them. It's kind of the old adage that you have to leave a little mystery in order to hold someone's attention. So same goes with your resume. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of key things that you should really focus on and that recruiters are going to be focusing on when they're taking that first glance of your resume. Keeping in mind when you write your resume, chances are the person reviewing it is only going to take a 7 to 10 second cursory glance at it. So you want to make sure that in that 7 to 10 second cursory glance that you are giving them the information that they need and not making their eyes dance all over the page, doing what I call the eyeball cha-cha in order to find those key pieces of information. So again, just a couple of things that you'll want to highlight. So just to give you a quick laundry list, what you want to make sure you're doing is in your contact information or in the header of your resume is making sure that you include your LinkedIn profile URL. So hopefully you're active on LinkedIn, because I can tell you as a recruiter, once we get your resume, that's the first thing we do is we look you up on LinkedIn. So just as a common courtesy, if you can give them that up front, they don't have to go hunting and pecking for it. Then they can just click on it in your resume and it takes them right back there. The other is the profile and summary section, writing a little information about yourself to let them know who you are, what you're looking for in your next role, what kind of environment you're most productive in, things of that nature. And again, we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. And then again, talking about those accomplishments and your relevant experience. Again, making that short and succinct and honing in on key things. Again, those things that you did to kind of move the needle and make the job better. And then your education or certifications or any trainings that you might have that might be relevant to the job. Those are the 5 things that, like, again, in that 7 to 10 second cursory glance, that's what the things that the recruiter is going to be looking for. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more in depth about each of those things. So we've got Jane Smith who is a marketing professional. And as you can see in her contact information right under her name, keeping it really brief and simple. I'm not a big fan of adding a personal address or your home address to your resume or your city and state. Reason being is that you, especially if you're relocating, you want that employer to fall in love with your work experience and not your zip code. So if and it's also for security purposes. You don't want anyone, if someone hacks into a system, having your personal contact information of where you live. So instead, replacing that with the LinkedIn profile. Again, recruiters are going to go there anyway. So as a courtesy, if you can put that URL there, that's great. You can either spell it all the way out or hyperlink it to the word LinkedIn. Either way, they'll be able to click on that. For security purposes, it's probably better to hyperlink it than having the whole thing there for someone to be able to copy and paste. So again, just for a security precaution, doing that. And then I always like to suggest that under your header and your contact information, to do a brief profile about yourself. It doesn't need to be anything terribly lengthy, 3 or 4 sentences that talk a little bit about who you are. Talk about your work persona, who you are at work, and what that looks like, what your strengths are, talking about what you're good at, what are your superpowers, what makes you good at what you do. Talking a little bit about the work culture that makes you feel productive and purposeful at the end of the day. And if you're making a career transition, whether it's industry or you're just moving companies or you're going from being a dentist to an underwater basket weaver, whatever the case may be, talking a little bit about what you're looking for in your next role, what kind of challenges, what kind of learning and growth opportunities are you looking for? Because again, that's going to give them a little bit of that personality and what you bring to the table and who you are, and if that's a good fit for what they're offering in the position or within that team or organization. So, you can see from Jane's profile, she mentions that she's a storyteller, a skills assister. She's an affixer who's looking for a next challenge. What she's good at doing, she's working with people, processes, and technology. She likes creative spaces. She likes being creative and working in ideation. And then she's looking at opportunities to go from the technology field into the finance industry. So again, just in 3 or 4 sentences, that tells you a lot about who Jane is and what she's looking for and what makes her happy at work. And again, giving that piece of information will make for much better informed conversations and let them know if it's going to be a good fit for what they're looking for. So it doesn't take much, just a little, but again, that's great information to have. And like I said, it can lead to more conversations and subsequent meetings in your job search. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about experience and accomplishments. And I'm going to tie in a little bit of, more with this about career transitioners. I think it goes across the board. As I mentioned, talking about your experience, you really want to hone in on those accomplishments. But also, for many people, especially if you have moved around a lot and you're possibly looking to transition careers, you want to hone in on the information that's going to be most relevant. And you may have had other experiences that have nothing to do with what you're looking to do next, and that's perfectly okay. And you don't have to follow the rule of doing a purely chronological resume, a resume in reverse chronological order. What I like to do, and this also remedies people needing to put together multiple resumes. I always tell people that's not necessary. You don't need to have a different resume for every position that you apply to. There's a way that you can kind of do a catch-all, because at the end of the day, your experience isn't going to change much. It's just the way that you're presenting the story. So often what I'll do is I'll recommend that you split your experience or your work history into a couple of different components. For example, if you have been working in marketing and you had some retail experience, in the beginning of your career, you may want to break that up. So break up that marketing experience and call that relevant experience. Those are the types of roles that they want to see first and see and look at that experience. So shine a spotlight on that and take your experience and split it into 2. Do that relevant experience and then talk about in reverse chronological order all that marketing experience that you've had. Then you can do a separate section for that other experience, and that would be that retail experience that you've had. That isn't quite relevant to what you're looking to do, but you still want to highlight, especially if you may have done some of that retail experience in between. You want to demonstrate your whole work history without any gaps. So list that as under other experience. And you don't need to put any bullet points with that. Just list it as work history. So putting your position name, the company you worked for, the location and the dates of employment. That's all you need. And then that way there'll be no gaps in your resume. There'll be no questions there. They can still see all of that experience, but the spotlight is going to be on the things that are most relevant to the jobs you're applying to. So it's kind of a functional resume, but not. But again, you're shining a spotlight and putting the emphasis where you want the employer to see that. So that's a great way to do that. And then, like I said, you want to, when you're talking about your experience, focus on those accomplishments. And so I've put that under key highlights. You can call it key accomplishments or whatever you want to, or key achievements, however you want to put that. And what I would say is to really limit those bullet points to like 3 to 5 accomplishments that you're really proud of. Things that you've done that have moved the needle and, like I said, made the job better than what you started. So, whether, that is coming up with some processes and procedures that, save the company time or money, or whether, you had some sort of award or accolade, whatever the case may be. But again, make sure that you're putting those in making your bullet points, that's going to be the meat of that. You don't need to talk about the daily duties that you're doing, you're answering phone calls and things of that nature, unless that's the majority of what you're doing. You want to, again, focus on those accomplishments that have made the job better and have added value to the job. Those are the conversations, and those are also going to become talking points for you in other aspects of your job search. So if you start thinking about that now and put those in your resume, when you get to the point of interviewing and people asking you behavioral questions, you've already blown the dust off the mental Rolodex and started thinking about some of those examples. And you can pull those from the resumes and, again, have some talking points there. And then you also want to make sure that you're quantifying those bullet points. Not talking too general, you really want to be able to tell a story. And that's what those bullet points should be doing, talking about the things that you did to move the needle. And again, giving them very high level information. You don't want to give every detail away because you want to leave something to talk about in your interviews. So giving enough information, again, to pique their interest and be like, oh, this is great that they did that. And then in subsequent conversations, you can explain to them how you went about doing that. So the example that I like to give in terms of quantifying information is, say, for example, you have 300 people who are applying for a job to make widgets. How do you discern who the best widget maker is? If everyone says that they've been making them for the last 5 years, it's really hard to determine. But if someone comes along and tells me that they've been making widgets for the last 5 years, they've been able to do it with 25% fewer defects, 15% under budget over the last 4 quarters, that's a much more compelling story. And then, like I said, then that leaves room for me to have conversation with you about what methodologies and things that you've done in order to achieve that. So those are the kind of things I'm talking about in terms of quantifying. And it doesn't always have to mean numbers. It can also mean, again, award or accolades or things that you've done to, win partnerships, things of that nature. So there's various ways of quantifying that. And if you like, I can send an email out with some links to some articles that talk about that, quantifying things without using numbers in your resume. That might be helpful for you as well. And then lastly, what you want to make sure that you're doing, and I'm going back to what I said earlier about the person reading your resume only spending 7 to 10 seconds looking at it. What you want to make sure is that when you're putting together your bullet points, that you're being strategic about it and that you're prioritizing and putting the most significant things that you've done in your top 3 bullet points. That way, again, when they're doing that cursory glance, those are going to be the things that they pick up on first. So your most important things should go at the top and then everything else below that. So again, being strategic and really making sure that you're prioritizing those things. Okay. And then we're going to go on to talking about the other sections of the resume that the reader is going to be looking at, the skills section. And I want to emphasize this because more than likely, this is where those key search words are going to be coming in. Yes, you want to have some in your resume, and by talking about some of your accomplishments, that's automatically going to happen. But then they're also, if they're doing key search words, you also want to make sure you have a few of those embedded in your resume. And the skills section is a really good place to do that. What you don't want to do with the skills section is overgeneralize it. Talking about I'm a great communicator, or I work well in teams. Anyone can say that, but that's very, very hard to quantify. So what you want to do is focus on things, actual skill sets that you bring to the table. And a good way to assess that is to look through job descriptions of similar job titles or job descriptions that you're interested in and seeing if they're highlighting any skills specifically that they're looking for, and making sure that you have that in the resume and making sure that you're able to do those things. So in this case, things like operations strategy or event management or logistics and scheduling or doing client relations, or if you have any other language skills, adding those to that section as well. Be specific with that, and like I said, stay out of the making those generalizations about, like I said, teaming and things of that nature. You can talk a little bit about, how you've done that in your interviews, but be very specific when you're talking and pointing these things out in your skills section. And then this is also a good place that if you're making a career transition, where you can list your transferable skills. So those things that you have done in your previous roles that will apply to this role, or the new career area that you're looking to go into, because chances are you've got some great baseline skills that will translate whatever career you're going into. So those are the things that you want to highlight there. And you can call them transferable skills if you like. But again, that's a great place to highlight that to make sure that's being picked up. And then, of course, your education section, you want to make sure you're highlighting that. If you don't have a degree, or you may want to highlight if you've taken some courses, or if you've done some training and certifications, you want to list that in this section here. One thing I want to point out is that you want to omit the graduation dates when you're listing your education. I can tell you that age discrimination is a real thing in recruiting. So just to make sure that you're safeguarding yourself against that, take those out. That way they don't do the math and figure out how old you are and what you've been doing. And then also when you're listing those training and those certifications, making sure that you put the dates that you're receiving them, or if it's pending, making sure you write when you anticipate getting those certifications or trainings completed, and where you got those certifications and trainings from. That's really important. I often see that left off of resumes. So that's key for the person reading it to know. And then talking about some of your tech skills. And that's mainly your computer skills, whether you have any programming languages, any software that you may know, equipment if you are on the creative side of things. This is the area that you want to highlight that. And again, if they're doing key search words, or if you're in the tech field and there are specific types of languages or programs that they're looking for you to use, you want to make sure that you're calling that out and it's easy for them to find. So give that its own real estate on the resume to make it much easier for the reader to locate that information. Or again, if they're going through an applicant tracking system, search engine optimization, it's picked up there as well. And then just talking a little bit about the format of the resume. I get tons of questions on this from people. I always say, regardless of what kind of resume you're submitting, always submit it as a PDF. Reason being that the PDF is going to guarantee that the formatting stays intact, especially with an applicant tracking system. So even if you're producing it in Word, submit it as a PDF. Again, that way you can make sure that the formatting is staying intact. Also, using bullet points and not a paragraph form in your resume is also very helpful. Again, going back to taking that 7 to 10 second cursory glance of the resume, it's much easier for the reader to follow if you're using bullet points and not a paragraph format to find those key pieces of information. And then we talked about, having the top 3 bullets be the most important things on your resume, being those top 3 bullets. And then also making the resume a 2-page maximum. I get this question all the time, whether a resume should be 1 page, 2 pages. I say a 2-page maximum, because if you have 20 plus years of experience, that's really hard to condense into 1 page and make it be effective. So I can tell you that, if it bleeds onto a 2nd page, no one's going to relegate it to the island of misfit toys, as long as all of the information included on it is relevant. Again, you don't want to include information that's not going to be of interest to them. So, by following some of the previous steps that I outlined for you, if you have that information included on there, and again, it's relevant experience that you're talking about and it bleeds over to a second page, that's perfectly fine. Also, if you have white space on that second page, don't feel like you have to fill it in with a bunch of fluff information. Give them just what they need and don't worry about the fluff information. Again, formatting, things of that nature, you don't have to fill that white space. So white space is not your enemy. It's actually an okay thing. And it also leaves wiggle room for later on once you need to add experience or you add a new job to your resume, then you have some space to play with there. So again, that's not a bad thing, but a 2-page maximum. After anything more than that gets to be a little too information dense. And I know that as a recruiter, if I saw something more than 2 pages, that usually meant that I was going to relegate it to the recycle bin. So keep it to 2 pages and make the information relevant. And if you're really worried about it, and you had a really long career, going back even to what I was saying about the age discrimination, I would suggest that you keep your experience to the last 10 to 12 years. If you've been in your career quite a long time. Again, that way you make sure that you're not subjected to age discrimination. And then also you'll be able to keep it to that 2-page limit. Okay. Fonts that you'll want to use, and again, this is just kind of keeping it along with it being applicant tracking system friendly. The ones I have listed there, Arial, Calibri, Sago, Cambria, Open Sans, those are all applicant tracking friendly fonts. So you want to keep them friendly. You know, it's if you really want to jazz things up a little bit, add a little color, and you know, like I said, maybe put some key things in a different color just to add a pop of color and add a little personality to it. I am a fan somewhat of adding some graphics to a resume to add a little personality to it. Not always picked up in an applicant tracking system, but it is a nice added addition if you are emailing it to someone and you want to have a nice presentation. So what I would say is to keep the very vanilla version for the applicant tracking system and the more colorful, personality-filled one for when you're meeting face-to-face with someone or you're emailing it to someone for networking purposes. And for those of you who are looking for some creative formats or a different format for your resume, or looking for some templates, there is a great site out there. It's called Canva. And they have not only resume formats, but formats for a little bit of everything, whether it's cover letters, whether it's flyers, what have you. But it's a great resource, and they're very user friendly. You know, don't have to have a graphic design degree in order to utilize it. And like I said, they have a lot of personality. So you can find something there that fits your personality that you'll be able to kind of manipulate and add your information into to make your resume stand out and again, amongst the competition, and also be representative of who you are in your personality. Because that's very important to feel connected to your resume. I often ask clients their favorite color or a little something about themselves to either include in the about or their profile section, or to add some accents to the resume. Because I feel like when you have something personally attached to it, you feel more confident when you're speaking to it. And that's going to come across when you're interviewing and doing screening and networking for your next opportunity. All righty, well, I have been waxing poetic here for a while, so I am going to give you guys an opportunity to ask some questions and fill in the blanks of some of the things maybe I didn't address that you would like to know about. So I'm going to open the floor up.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Yolanda. I was copiously taking notes.
Oh, good.
And I'm sure everyone else was as well. So the way we'll do questions is, I know I saw 2 pop on the chat. I'll call on you and then you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Please limit it to 1 question so that, you know, others get a chance. And if you have questions anyway, just keep typing them, because what we could also do is, as a follow-up, we could have Yolanda respond to them separately, and we can make an FAQ document. So I think we that would be helpful. So first, I know Vidya had a question. So Vidya, if you want to ask your question, you want to come off mute, and then we'll come to Lydia, and then yeah. So go ahead, Vidya.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Yolanda, for the session, and Aditi and Dipali for scheduling this. I had a question about consultants. I'm one. So what happens is I have full-time gigs as well as consulting gigs. Sometimes it's overlapping, adding to the confusion.
Gotcha.
So what is a smart way to outline that in a resume?
You may want to do more of a functional resume where you call out your consulting experience as a separate section from your day-to-day. I've done that with several clients who have been consultants. So they may say, for example, be in operations, but then they've also done some consulting experience. So I've done 2 separate sections on that. And depending on what type of role you're applying to, you can, prioritize that and move either the consulting experience towards the top and the other towards the bottom, or vice versa. So again, it keeps you from having to put together multiple resumes, and it's much easier for you to kind of just move the pieces around to fit whatever audience that you're trying to aspire to.
Okay, thank you. I'm doing a version of that. The more confusing part is when somebody looks at my profile on LinkedIn.
Yes, LinkedIn that's a little less friendly, because you don't have the luxury of being able to move those things around, because it's automatically going to put it into chronological order for you. I would say in that instance, instead of putting all your bullet points in your LinkedIn profile, give a brief summary. Just give a brief 1 to 2 sentence summary of what you've done in each of those roles. Since you can't bypass that chronological. And then that way, and this is just a tip for everyone, a recruiter's tip, just put that 1 to 2 sentence summary of each of your jobs. Don't attach your resume, and don't copy and paste the bullet points into your LinkedIn profile. And it's going to, what that does is it forces a touch point. If they like what they see, then they automatically have to reach out to you to ask you for your resume. But if you give that to them up front, then you lose that touch point. So it's forcing them to engage with you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Yolanda. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. Awesome. Lydia, do you want to go next?
Yes. Hi there, Yolanda.
Hi, Lydia.
Hi there. So that's a really interesting, because LinkedIn, on one hand, you don't put dates on your resume, but LinkedIn more or less forces you to put dates in. And I'm just thinking that for me, I've worked 12 years in one position, one company, multiple positions.
Gotcha.
So 12 years, 14 years, and I've just completed a 3-year contract. And I'm going, wow, how do you actually address the ageism thing? Because it's there on my LinkedIn profile.
Gotcha. I have seen some people who have just listed one job title and then listed that for 14 years, and then maybe, underneath that, given some little subsections about that. So that might be one way to bypass it. And then, like I said, if you're just giving that quick blurb, then they can see more of the detail on your resume. So what I like to think of LinkedIn is kind of a supplemental piece to your resume. It's kind of an introduction. And like I said, that's what makes you searchable. And so if recruiters are doing online searches, that's where they're going to find you. And so if you're going to focus on key search words, it should be more in your LinkedIn profile as opposed to your resume, because really the key search words are coming in for online searches. And for recruiters, that's going to be through LinkedIn. I don't know a lot of recruiters that are sourcing resumes through an applicant tracking system, mainly because that's not what they are really designed to do.
I know, they're designed to triage.
Exactly. So that's why I would say 80-90% of recruiters are doing their searches through LinkedIn, which is why LinkedIn, recently got really smart and allow now recruiters to post their positions. And LinkedIn, as of a few months ago, became the #1 job board above Indeed and ZipRecruiter. So that's where the recruiters are spending their time. That's their one-stop shop to both source and post their positions. So, spending your time doing that with the key search words in there, and like I said, giving them a high-level overview, and then letting them reach out to you for your resume to get those more granular details will work more in your favor.
Okay, that's really interesting, because almost everything I've read has said the exact opposite, that you're supposed to put much more and flesh out your LinkedIn profile and add the details that you can't put into your resume because you have to keep your resume brief.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
You see, and I'm sitting there going, okay,
don't agree
with that. Opposite of what I've been reading.
Exactly. No, I don't agree with that. And like I said, I tell people to do that because you're forcing that touch point. Like I said, if I don't have all of those details and I'm interested in speaking with you, then that's going to make me send you an email to say, hey, I saw your profile. I would like to learn more. Can you please send me your resume?
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to change this around. Okay.
Yeah, you lose that touch point doing that, and that's where a lot of people miss out, because if I'm a recruiter and you've already given me all that information up front, then I'm just going to go and take that information and do whatever, and you have no idea that I'm looking at you. But if you leave that out, that makes me reach out to you, and then you're going to engage in conversation with me.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Hi, Yolanda. I have a couple of questions too. Sorry, I didn't write them. I was busy listening to all your answers. Thank you so much for coming here. So my question is, like Lydia, I do have 10 years of experience in my last job, but what I'm wondering is if it would come up as a disadvantage to have worked in the same group. For her, she has worked in different groups in the same company, but for me, I worked in the same group. And my profile kind of grew with the job, and there were, code-based changes and UI changes, but pretty much I stayed with the same group. So I'm wondering if that would be a disadvantage for me.
No, not necessarily, because you probably had title changes. So as long as you can demonstrate those title changes.
For the last year, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to show that growth and development.
Okay.
So, if some way you can segment it out, whether it's by, again, title change or some other sort of subtle change that you can make it look different and show kind of telling the story. And that's what your resume wants to do. That's why I'm not a big fan of using templates, because they often don't allow you to tell the story in a way that makes sense. So what you want to do is you want to find a way to tell that story to make sense. It just doesn't have to be name, rank, serial number, a couple of bullet points. You want to tell that story, and that could be showing that progression that, you started here and then you moved here. It may have been within the same company, within the same group, but you want to show how your skills and how you advanced within that role. So that's great. That you want to put on paper.
Awesome. And just one more thing. It's kind of embarrassing, but I worked for Microsoft for these last 10 years, but I've never gotten around to make my LinkedIn profile. So last 8 months, I worked for a healthcare startup and didn't work out. So I'm going to get back into the market now. And I'm wondering how to go about it now.
Yeah, you definitely want to get that LinkedIn profile out there, because like I said, that's where the recruiters are going to be looking for you. And it doesn't take a whole lot in order to kind of get that up and running. Take a couple of key things from your resume, and if you're interested, I'm happy to share my email address, and I can kind of send you kind of a sample of what something should look like to get you on the right path. And then you can.
Oh my God, that would be awesome. Yes, that'll be great. Yeah, and thank you so much for all the wonderful tips. They were really handy. I made notes. I made copious notes. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
Awesome. We have a question from Sindhu. Sindhu, do you want to come off mute?
Oh, hi Yolanda, hi everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very new to all those stuffs, and thank you for all the tips. I've been taking notes paper by paper, and it's
Great.
made a lot. So the thing is, I'm not being into actual work as of now due to many reasons,
Mhm.
family, financial, all the stuffs. But there are breaks in my entire career, like small breaks, big breaks. But I've been doing certification, but I'm not able to do it. Goes like it doesn't be. Is it like considered gaps, black dots? How can I put that on a resume when I have breaks in between years? Like I'm going to say, and most of my works are not exact works. They are contributions, volunteering, freelancing. It's not
Mhm.
exact work. I've never been under a company or a giant or anything. It's
Yeah.
more like I've done my work. I mean, for example, I've done blogging. I've
Mhm.
done blog posting for someone, and I have done volunteering work online, but I don't know how to represent that on my resume, how to exactly put that on resume.
Yeah, and all of that, I'm going to argue with you that that is work. You said that's work. That is work, and just because it doesn't fit kind of the norm, so to speak, doesn't mean that you can't list it as work. I tell people all the time. I have people who do kind of side gigs or do volunteer work. That absolutely does count as actual work experience. You can list it as volunteer experience if you want to, or list it under your work experience. If you're doing actual work, even if you're not getting paid for it, that's experience. And it doesn't have to be paid, or it doesn't have to fit under a formal title for you to have gained skills. So if it's valuable work experience and it's tied to the type of work that you would like to get, absolutely listed under your work experience.
Okay. And about the gaps in between and the
I mean,
breaks.
yeah, as long as you're comfortable explaining those gaps, I feel as though, gaps nowadays aren't looked at as harshly as they have in the past, just because we are in an employment economy, in a culture that stability just doesn't exist anymore. I mean, you have companies who do layoffs on a quarterly basis, and so gaps are going to happen. And again, as long as you're comfortable with it and you can, talk to what you were doing in between those gaps, then that's fine. Your experience is what your experience is, so own that. Don't be ashamed of it. Put that on there and wear it with pride. Trust me, you are not the first and you're not the last who's going to have gaps on your resume. And they happen for any number of reasons, whether it's family or financial, or gap years are actually a real common thing, not only for students, but for professionals. I have many clients who have taken time off to travel. I'm working with a client right now who took 3 years off to travel to 22 countries and now is coming back into the workforce. So it happens a lot. And like I said, I think nowadays it's not as frowned upon as it may have been like 10 years ago. It's becoming more the norm than the exception.
Got it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for everything.
Awesome. I think we have time for one last quick, we have 6 minutes. One quick question we can do. We can squeeze it in. And like I said, if you have more, just type them in the chat box. We will make sure we answer that.
Yes.
So any last question?
I have a good question.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for your time and for doing this great presentation.
Sure.
I was wondering, where should I include my references? Directly in resume, in cover letter, or send it per request separately, or should I just send it to everyone?
No, you don't no longer need to put that on your resume or your cover letter. References are being handled differently nowadays. I know back in the day you had to put that on your resume or your cover letter for them to reach out to. Now the employer it's usually a space on the application. If you're filling it out online, that will ask for that information. So put that there. You can either put it within their application or send it as a separate attachment. But unless they're asking you for it, you don't have to put that on your resume or your cover letter. So just take that section out altogether.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I think we had a question, Yolanda, about whether you'll be able, you'll be sharing your contact details and, you know, your what you offer and your rates and any discounts, etc. So if they want to share with others, so I think you can share now and you can send it to us also, and we are happy to share that.
Yeah. My website is CareerSenseiConsulting.com, or you can also go to my personal website, YolandaMOwens.com. So you can find me at either one of those, and there is a form on there that you can click to connect with me or schedule an appointment with me or see what services I offer.
Awesome. And we'll send this out along with the recording as well later.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Sindhu wants to add in a quick question. Please make it really quick.
Yeah, sure. That I'm very sorry about that. That just popped up really late. The thing is, if I see a job opportunity asking for 4 years experience, 13 plus experience, what does it actually mean? Because if I have been doing a writing work or writing for past 4 years, does that include in the 4 years experience, or do they expect something else, something more? What does that mean?
I always tell people, and this comes from years of writing job descriptions as a recruiter, the years of experience are nice to have, but they are not the end all be all. So, if you have a couple of years of experience, you're asking for 5 years of experience, you only have 4 years of experience, throw your hat in the ring anyway. You have absolutely nothing to lose but a little time and opportunity. I always tell people, don't base your application feeling that you have to tick all the boxes that are on there. If you tick 60% of those boxes, you're probably doing really well. And like I said, the years of experience, that's a nice to have, but it's not a necessity. So if you're in that ballpark, throw your hat in the ring. You've got nothing to lose but a little time and opportunity. So don't let that be a roadblock for you. Go ahead and apply anyway.
Oh, so what you say is if the skill is matching what they ask matches mine, and what they are asking for matches my thing, so the experience part or the real gig I did is going to go down the top priority, right?
Yeah. So I would just go ahead and throw your hat in the ring for that. Like I said, you've got nothing to lose but a little time and an opportunity. And I've often found too that job descriptions are older and they may not have updated them. And oftentimes too, they may ask for that experience, and then you find out 6 months later that they actually need less experience or what have you. So those years of experience are kind of subjective. So yeah, I don't put a whole lot of weight into that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Hey, Yolanda.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. What's next? I know you have a surprise.
Oh, yes. And I know you had another slide on here.
Oh, yes. So
in advance that.
yeah. So I see some messages coming in. Also, we do have 2 events already lined up. One is on demystifying the project management professional certification, which Deepali is leading, and the other one is about navigating the hiring system, which a job search strategist is leading. I've put the Eventbrite link in the chat. Please go ahead and register. One is on 8th May and 22nd May. And then the next slide is just about how we can connect, but maybe we want to do so this is, you can connect with us at Connected We Are Pistachio, our website, join our Facebook group. We also have a podcast where we interview relocating spouses and their journeys. So a lot of questions, like what do you do after a gap? You listen to inspiring stories of women who've done that. So please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Deepali as well. And thank you for your time. And before you all go, we do have something which Yolanda has offered to graciously give away. Do you want
Awesome.
to share what is that?
Do you want me to stop sharing so we can?
Yeah, can you tell a little bit about what we're giving away?
Yes, so what we are giving away, I have offered to do a free coaching resume review session with one of the lucky participants today. So we are going to do a random draw and select a name, and then we'll send out my contact information. You can schedule some time and you'll get a free half-hour resume review session with me.
Awesome.
Thank you. So Dipali is going to do the honors.
Yeah,
I'm going to stop sharing so she can do that.
yes. Before I share my screen for the lucky draw, I just wanted to make sure that there's only one Sandra Lopez because I see two of them. So I just want to make sure it's not the same person logged in from two devices. Sandra? Sandra, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
She said it's the same.
It's the same.
Oh, it's the same. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen now.
Oh, she said she has a problem. Okay.
Yeah, now we can see your screen.
Everybody can see the screen?
Yeah.
Oh, the last GI doc, that's okay, never mind. That's me second time.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because I logged in with that and the video wasn't working. So yeah. Yay.
So it's Shruti. Shruti, you are the winner. So you get a free resume review session with Yolanda.
So I was actually just here observing Yolanda. We are colleagues, and I also am a career coach. So
okay.
So thank you for the offer. I will let somebody else have the prize.
Okay. So thank you so much. So we're going to spin it one more time. Let's see. Oh. Okay, Ekta, that's you.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's great.
Wow, I got lucky.
You got lucky. You got lucky.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that's perfect. It's really great. Yeah.
All right. We'll look forward to that.
Yeah, me too. That would be really timely for me too.
Awesome.
Right. Well, thank you again, everyone. I'll hand it over to Dipali for final closing comments.
Hey, thank you so much. First off, Yolanda, thank you so much for your time. And you know, it's absolutely awesome that you are able to share your expertise with so many people who are struggling this, through this journey. So really appreciate the time and the effort that you have put into this. To everybody who's attended, I hope that you have been able to get some tangible takeaways. That's the idea of every single Lunch and Learn webinar that we have, that you should be able to go away from this feeling like you have gotten something solid that you could actually take and implement or apply. So thank you so much for participating. We have very, very interesting events lined up. If you like, we've already shared the details earlier. Go ahead, register for those events, sign up for our newsletter, like our Facebook page, and join the group where we actually update all the information of the events, the upcoming events. Thank you for your support and look forward to this continued support until we meet again. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and if you want to drop a testimonial for how this workshop was, drop it. And if you're okay with us using it, please do that as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Dipali, super. Yolanda, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Yolanda.
Bye-bye.